On August 6, 2024, I received a challenge. I was walking around Missoula, Montana, visiting the offices of Complexly. They make popular educational series on YouTube, such as Crash Course and SciShow. And at the end of the tour, notable author, science communicator, and sock salesman Hank Green did something interesting. He challenged me to an arm wrestling match.
That was a heinous call out.
So what exactly was I doing arm wrestling Hank Green in Montana? Over the course of 2024, I interviewed Hank and his brother John for a profile piece, a story that ended up on the cover of Creator magazine. The purpose of this piece was simple. I aimed to understand the brothers' impact across their best-selling books, their nonprofit work, and yes, the Vlogbrothers YouTube channel. After all, it's never been easier to wield online influence to promote pump-and-dump crypto schemes or spread conspiracy theories. Why do Hank and John still hold themselves to the same high standard all these years later? Along with interviewing Hank and John, I spoke with over a dozen people who have found themselves in the Vlogbrothers orbit. Nerdfighters who reside everywhere from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania to Oslo, Norway. We released the story in print a year ago, but we sold out of this magazine and never shared the story online. Until today. So a year later, as we said goodbye to Creator Mag, it only felt right to release this story for free right here on YouTube. Stick around for the audiobook version of a crash course on Hank and John Green, and watch until the very end to learn how you can still get it in print.
Hello, John. By now, you've received my message that we will no longer be communicating through any textual means. No more instant messaging, no more emailing. Only video blogging. Hank, Brotherhood 2.0, January 1st, 2007. Historians disagree about when exactly the annual Western Montana Fair hosted its first week-long exhibition in the quiet logging town of Missoula. Some argue it was 1879, not long after the Western Montana Agricultural, Mechanical, and Mineral Association incorporated, proceeding to construct a 1-mile racetrack, 6 feet wide, all for the cost of $400. Others say those largely unsuccessful attempts predate the real inaugural event in 1914, which brought 12,000 excited patrons to Missoula for a week of mesmerizing hot air balloon demonstrations, horse races, and the finest livestock displays ever assembled in western Montana. Nevertheless, what's indisputable is that, over a century later, this unique slice of Americana lives on. It's a beautiful summer evening in early August, and a colorful fluorescent Ferris wheel lights up the sky. Teens race to toss rings and roll skee balls. Parents plug their noses as they take their kids through the sheep and pig-filled petting zoo. I find myself here, stuffing my face with a bag of homemade kettle corn half my size, just 2 miles and change away from one of YouTube's most unexpected, and either seemingly unrealized or acutely understood, depending on your familiarity with the Vlogbrothers lore, success stories. I wasn't supposed to be here in August. In fact, I'd originally talked with a Missoula resident named Hank Green about visiting the offices of Complexly, the educational media company he started with his brother John, in late April. Yet fate had other plans. I opened my email inbox on the evening of March 13th to see this message from Hank. "Okay, this sucks," it read. "I've just been invited to the White House to interview the president about cancer research, and the only time they can do it is May 1st, which means I'd be leaving town on April 30th at like 6:30 in the morning. Let me know if you have any thoughts here," Hank concluded. "I know it's a huge pain in the butt." I've spent the better part of 2024 chasing a comprehensive chronicling of Hank and John. The pursuit partially came out of a selfish affinity for their work. The best-selling novels, such as The Fault in Our Stars and A Beautifully Foolish Endeavor, the original Creator Conference, VidCon, and of course, the Vlogbrothers YouTube channel, which the Greens started in 2007. But 2024 has also been an incredibly remarkable year for Hank and John, which is saying something, given the brothers have experienced many remarkable years over a remarkable 2 decades. For Hank, who overcame Hodgkin's lymphoma, a form of blood cancer, in 2023, this year has represented a triumphant return to the outside world. For John, the movie adaptation of one of his books premiered, and he laid the groundwork for his next big release. All the while, the brothers have continued to expand their philanthropic initiatives to new heights. Watch their original educational YouTube channel, Crash Course, past 2 billion lifetime views. Sort of, I'll explain this later. And continue vlogging through thick and thin. Every once in a while, the president of the most powerful country in the world invites them to the White House for a sit-down, too. My interviews with Hank and John took me everywhere from the Missoula Fairgrounds in Montana to room 204 of the Anaheim Convention Center to the Improv Theater in Brea, California. I met dozens of active members of their online community, Nerdfighteria, who reside in places such as Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and Oslo, Norway. I also watched quite a lot of Vlogbrothers videos. There are 2,300 of them, after all. My goal was not just to understand why Hank and John do what they do all these years later, but also to grapple with the brothers' impact on the people, industries, and institutions around them, particularly as YouTube, the platform, nears legal drinking age. I wanted to explore the Greens' commitment to, quote, making the world suck less, at a cultural moment in time when it's never been easier to wield influence in an unsavory fashion, from spreading conspiracy theories to promoting pump-and-dump crypto schemes. The universe that the Vlogbrothers have built is vast, and, as I discovered through many conversations, there's no lack of entry points into their orbit. But this marks my attempt to offer a crash course on that universe, in 4 distinct sections: the authors, the organizers, the educators, and the advocates. And what better place to start than in April, inside a packed theater filled with over 1,000 screaming fans. Part 1. The Authors. I'm walking back up from the very pinnacle of this pit of sentimentality, and then, bam, stung by a bee. John, looking for Alaska at my high school, 2010. Just 10 minutes south of downtown Los Angeles, the University of Southern California's campus is bustling on a springtime Saturday afternoon, and I join a throng of book lovers en route to the Bovard Auditorium. This weekend marks the 29th annual LA Times Festival of Books, and one of its marquee events is the premiere of Turtles All the Way Down. The film is a dutiful adaptation of John's 2017 novel, itself an exploration of obsessive-compulsive disorder, which John openly struggles with, through the lens of a mystery-solving high schooler named Asa. Judging by the palpable buzz as young patrons excitedly whisper to each other from their auditorium seats, the book's themes of friendship and identity still resonate with readers 7 years after its initial release. The crowd erupts as John, wearing a crisp navy blue blazer, glides to the center of the stage. He tells the crowd that today's premiere means even more to him, given Turtles, which was produced and distributed by Max, formerly HBO, will release direct to streaming without a theatrical run. "You are the first audience to see the film," John says. "I'm grateful to be able to watch this movie with you, and I hope that you like it." The lights dim, and the crowd cheers John on as he exits. He projects an air of comfort and confidence on stage. The setting was a little different when we met up several hours before the premiere, in the quiet lobby of his hotel downtown. "It's always a really thrilling, terrifying moment, the moment before anyone sees the movie," he tells me. His messy hair pairs well with a flannel shirt and jeans, looking every part the Midwestern dad he is. John lives in Indianapolis, and he just flew in for the premiere this morning. "It's done, and there's nothing that can be done to make it better," he continues. "I had to wake up at 3 a.m. anyway, but I barely slept last night. Just trying to work through all the possibilities and being excited and nervous and just feeling everything." If you're familiar with John's work, you might know that this is not his first rodeo. As the story goes, upon graduating from Kenyon College in 2000, John considered attending divinity school. It only took 6 months apprenticing as a children's hospital chaplain before realizing that path wasn't for him. He eventually took a job as a book reviewer in Chicago and began writing his own novels on the side. A lot of people grew up thinking the coolest thing in the world was TV or the Oscars. Now so many young people want to be just YouTubers, John says. I grew up idolizing writers and thinking that the coolest thing in the world was publishing. His first two works, Looking for Alaska, 2005, and An Abundance of Catherines, 2006, served as John's attempt to tackle big philosophical questions about life and death, translating them to a young adult, aka YA, audience in the process. After Alaska won the Micah L. Prince Award for the Best YA Book of the Year, he quit his day job to focus on writing novels full-time. I was doing okay as an author. It was a living, John says, reflecting on that period. I enjoyed the work and felt like I was successful, you know? But obviously, starting the YouTube channel really helped, he continues. That's when Hank came into the fold. John, the older brother by 3 years, pitched his younger brother and only sibling the idea of a video project they could create together. I've always thought very highly of him, Hank tells me. John, for the majority of my life, was like the architect of my music tastes. I never had to question whether something cool was cool if John thought it was cool. Hank credits John for serving as a writing mentor of sorts at that time, editing Hank's freelance work for outlets such as the humor magazine Mental Floss. The younger brother was also publishing EcoGeek, a popular environmental tech blog that Time once described as porn for hardcore science, tech, and enviro freaks. Hank is so much more hooked into the world of what's happening in new media than I am, John says. Yet their paths had diverged as adults. John's idea, Brotherhood 2.0, was devised as a way to help them reconnect with one another. Starting on January 1st, 2007, Hank and John stopped corresponding via text-based communication in favor of uploading a daily vlog to YouTube. Each video informed the other brother about everything from the minutiae of their lives to a recent rabbit hole they went down. They alternated every weekday all the way up until New Year's Eve, with punishments served for breaking a communication rule or missing an upload, such as when John had to wax his chin on February 5th. The project not only led an online fandom of self-described nerd fighters to emerge, but it also crowned the brothers as two of YouTube's most recognizable early stars. With intellectual rigor, the Green brothers have definitely brought something new to the pages of YouTube, read one Fox News article from 2007. To keep up with that blossoming community's commitment to their work, Hank and John decided to reimagine Brotherhood 2.0 as weekly vlogs, a predecessor to the Vlogbrothers format they've continued to this day. On top of that, John released more books over the next several years, including his acclaimed third solo novel, Paper Towns. But fans sometimes struggled to make the connection between John Green the author and John Green the YouTuber. Interestingly, I was really reluctant to market my books to my audience, John tells me. What I came to eventually is that I worked really hard on this, and I'm very proud of it. And these people are invested in my life and my work, and that's part of the reason that they show up every week. One fan, Mia Mamone, tells me that she first watched the brothers' videos in 5th grade. Identifying as a nerd fighter presented an instant way to make friends in her rural Oklahoma town, and she fell in love with John's novels not too long after. I've always gotten the sense when reading his books that he takes the emotions and the feelings of young people seriously, Mia says. It may feel kind of outsized and dramatic, but I don't know. It's very real when you're that age. I remember reading Looking for Alaska, John's first book, which was about this kid who went to a boarding school and sort of found his place there. One early fan from Norway, Trudy, adds. And I was moving away for high school, so I guess that book kind of sucked me into John's writing. But why was I watching guys in their 30s as a teenage girl? Trudy wonders aloud. I think back then there was this sort of idea that being a nerd is something like special, that you're a reject, and that we would gravitate towards each other. Around the turn of the decade, John began talking about his novels more frequently in his vlogs. And though there were early signs of something big brewing, no one could have predicted what happened next. I wasn't familiar with John's work before I was assigned to work with him on The Fault in Our Stars. Elise Marshall, a vice president and executive director of publicity at Penguin Random House, tells me. Now John's longtime publicist, she initially joined Penguin as an associate director in 2011, shortly before Stars released. The novel tells the story of Hazel, a 16-year-old girl with thyroid cancer who falls for a teenage boy in her support group. Flowery love letters, medical complications, and a trip to Amsterdam follow. I read the manuscript and I was just blown away by it, Elise said. Shortly after meeting John, Elise's email inbox became ground zero for the author to pitch different ideas for his upcoming book tour. John was also trying to explain to me the kind of audience that he has, Elise says. And he's telling me that he can fill venues which would sell hundreds of tickets, if not thousands. John wanted to skip flying in favor of piloting a van from venue to venue, hosting a live show that featured everything from sock puppets to wigs to special guest Hank Green. Elise had to ultimately dial back what her client had outlined, a 24-city tour for stars. Streamlining the trip wasn't just Elise's decision, either. At one point, she received an email from an unexpected source, John and Hank's parents. I can't remember whether it was Sydney or Mike Green saying, "Please do not let our sons drive themselves around the country," Elise laughs. When the shortened van tour did kick off in 2012, the Greens fans treated them like rock stars, Elise says. Attendees screamed every time the Vlogbrothers dropped an inside joke from their YouTube videos. John and Hank showed their appreciation by signing the former's books and the latter's CDs after each show. Hank was releasing several musical albums around this time. I was just struck by how much empathy both John and Hank had to be able to do that every night, night after night, and be there for their community, Elise tells me. The push in both YouTube vlogs and high school gymnasiums across the country spurred a new level of notoriety. Stars went on to spend 78 consecutive weeks on the New York Times bestseller list, moving more than 23 million copies worldwide. In 2014, the movie adaptation of John's book grossed over $300 million at the box office, paving the way for Hollywood to translate Paper Towns, Looking for Alaska, and now Turtles All the Way Down to the silver screen. As John became a mainstream name in the publishing world, Hank made strides as a writer too. He co-created the Lizzie Bennet Diaries in 2012, a Pride and Prejudice adaptation that became the first web series to ever win an Emmy. Hank also published 2 sci-fi novels, together referred to as the Carl series, that were met with critical and commercial acclaim in 2018 and 2020, respectively. And following his cancer diagnosis and quick remission last year, Hank decided to write a stand-up special about the experience called Pissing Out Cancer. The accompanying 2024 tour sold out every show, and the special was picked up by the indie streaming service Dropout. This run of success wasn't just noteworthy for a pair of YouTubers doubling as authors, or authors doubling as YouTubers, depending on your vantage point. It was remarkable for any author, period. Nevertheless, the constant level of energy expenditure, of enthusiastically signing everything within reach, piled up. Elise recalls how fans would share deeply personal stories with John on the Stars tour, which, while powerful, became a lot for him to process emotionally in the aggregate. There was one stop in San Francisco where I remember John had to leave the stage and plunge his hand into a bucket of ice water because he was in so much pain, she says. John himself reflects on this period in his life as incredibly rewarding, but physically and mentally draining. To suddenly be relatively close to the center of US pop culture and have Saturday Night Live sketches made about your book and everything, that was definitely a strange experience, John tells me. It wasn't one that I was anxious to repeat, to be honest with you. A lot of times, when an internet community gets really big, paradoxically, it becomes less powerful, or at least less powerful in the lives of the individuals who care about it, he follows up. John sees everything that he and his brother have done over the last decade as a response to that feeling. He notes that they've transitioned from stars to stewards, consciously writing books and filming videos that pertain mostly to the core community. It was clear that John wanted to focus on getting back to his writing and storytelling in a specific way, Elise says. I respect and admire him so much for being able to do that. His forthcoming book, Everything is Tuberculosis, is a nonfiction read that builds off of Nerdfighteria's fight against the world's deadliest disease. Even as he shied away from the celebrity author spotlight, I noticed something curious back at the Turtles film premiere on USC's campus. After the movie ends and the lights come on, the cast members, including rising Hollywood stars such as Isabella Merced, Felix Millard, and Cree, make their way to the stage for a Q&A. Yet the crowd saves its loudest cheers for the person who walks out last, John. Elise noticed the same thing during the rollout of the Stars film in 2014, which featured breakout actors Shailene Woodley and Ansel Elgort. She thinks that while John sees himself as an author first, his unique standing among readers is a byproduct of being in conversation with his fan base for over a decade on YouTube. Empathy and connection, that's so much of what he talks about when he talks about his books and his characters, she concludes. He's just so consistent about making the space for people to be really passionate about something and to connect with one another. Still, Elise mentions that John can sometimes afford to be a little more empathetic with himself, too. After we log off our call, she sends a follow-up email, noting that the team no longer has John do public book signings on his tours in an effort to preserve his energy. The last public signing that I did with John was in 2014. There were maybe 1,000 people in line, and we were there for hours, Elise writes. John wasn't going to leave till everyone had their book signed. Part 2. The Organizers. Ah! Hank, screaming through VidCon, 2012. It's now June, and I find myself in Anaheim for the annual creator convention, VidCon. The event marks one of the only times this year when Hank and John will be in the same place at the same time. Therefore, I take advantage of the stars lining up and schedule a photo shoot with the brothers on Saturday afternoon. After a long week of festivities, things are winding down as we step out onto the patio at the Hyatt. Hank's assistant, Erin, asks that we keep our photo shoot within the hotel. If there's anywhere Hank and John are at their most famous, it's VidCon, she writes over email. Indeed, the Vlogbrothers are a frequent conversation topic among VidCon attendees, such as Karen Cavett. Like many individuals I've talked to this year, Karen had a unique entrance into the Green's expanded universe. A diehard Harry Potter fan in high school, she was browsing an online MuggleCast forum when one day, someone shared a curious post. Is anyone here a nerd fighter? It read, with a link to the Vlogbrothers channel. This was in January 2008, right after Brotherhood 2.0 had officially wrapped. Therefore, Karen found an entire back catalog of videos waiting for her to binge. Within 2 weeks, she'd watched every Vlogbrothers video from 2007. By the end of January, she started her own YouTube channel and began uploading regular DIY videos and vlogs inspired by the Greens. The last Harry Potter book had already been released, and I could see this fandom was going to kind of taper off, Karen tells me. And so I was like, wow, look at this other community on YouTube, which has a lot of crossover. Look at this other kind of adjacent community that I could also be a part of. When Karen went off to study design in college, she remembers she was kinda overwhelmed by everything. YouTube was an alternate place for her to connect with people who shared the same kind of nerdy interests, people like Hank and John. She one day decided to draw a map with all of the stops on the brothers' first tour in 2008, and sent it to them via email. Not only did the Greens love the map and post it to their website, but they also began to reach out to Karen to do freelance graphic design work. She didn't cross paths with the Greens in person until attending a Harry Potter convention called Terminus later that year. She saw them again at the inaugural LeakyCon in 2009. Eventually, it became apparent that Hank and John were ready to launch an event of their own. A couple of months ago, John and I decided that we were really interested in the possibility of getting all of the best online video creators together in the same place, Hank announced in a vlog from December 2009. Naturally, he enlisted a lookalike sock puppet to help break the news. Rhett and Link, Brittany Louise Taylor, Ray William Johnson. The first VidCon featured the Avengers of early YouTube stardom, and the Greens were the ones at the center of it all. The success of these projects isn't based on million-dollar marketing budgets or the ungodly beauty of the people who started them, Hank proclaimed in the announcement video. It's the raw ability to entertain. The loose thesis of that first VidCon in 2010 was paired with scheduled programming intended to help creators learn and laugh alongside each other, including musical performances and an insider track for those who want to get into the down and dirty specifics of building community on YouTube. The Los Angeles Times dubbed it the convention for the most famous filmmakers you've never heard of, observing that the inaugural event's snags, such as faulty microphones and a shortage of lanyards, weren't too dissimilar for audiences enamored with watching videos made by people in their bedrooms. Karen doesn't remember Hank's initial pitch or the event's hiccups so much as what the convention represented. A room full of 1,400 people, all interested in this niche thing, all excited to celebrate the growing possibilities of the online video world. Those early creators like Karen were all collaborators in a way, down to organizing meetups in the basement ballroom of the Century Plaza Hotel to hosting unofficial after-parties. The front of the programming book, I actually designed that, she says, excitedly showing me the original program from 2010. I was fully involved from the beginning. Over the following years, VidCon evolved from the first IRL YouTuber hangout to a regular stop on the digital media event calendar, as The Hollywood Reporter put it in 2019. The convention played a major role in legitimizing the creator world, allowing both video makers and industry executives alike to witness how all those likes and subscribes converted into in-person fandom. VidCon moved from the basement in Century City to the Anaheim Convention Center in 2014, regularly welcoming an estimated 75,000 fans and industry professionals every year. After-parties have moved from hotel rooms to swanky rooftop bars and impromptu trips to Disneyland. And while the Greens spun the event production company out of their growing network of interconnected businesses, the brothers eventually decided to sell VidCon in 2018 to Viacom. It was a feather in the cap for the Vlogbrothers, another sign of their prowess as entrepreneurs and organizers. Since the acquisition, VidCon has expanded with festivals across the globe, connecting creators with their fans in cities like London and Singapore. Growing pains have followed, however. Some factors have been out of the new owner's control. The convention was put on pause due to the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020 and 2021. Hank, still one of VidCon's biggest draws, couldn't attend in 2022 after coming down with COVID. In 2023, he was going through chemotherapy. Other factors have simply been a microcosm of the expanding industry. VidCon appeals to a more general creator audience. More niche events such as DreamCon, an anime and gaming convention started by comedy creators RDC World, and Open Sauce, a San Francisco-based tech showcase for STEM creators, have moved to fill in the gaps. Additionally, when TikTok took YouTube's spot as the convention's top sponsor in 2022, some event goers observed that the fast-rising nature of contemporary fame, attributed to TikTok's For You algorithm, resulted in a collection of featured creators with fleeting recognizability. At the beginning, the thing that made the community and the thing that brought us all together was just this weird hobby of doing online video, Karen tells me. These days, that's become such a ubiquitous thing. Like, everybody has made a TikTok or put a video out online. And so now, that's not quite enough to bring a community together. Following decreasing attendee numbers and a noticeably sparser brand presence at this year's convention, Viacom decided to sell VidCon to the UK events company Informa in August. But even as the convention goes back to the drawing board, figuring out its standing amid an increasingly complex and diverse landscape, its impact is routinely felt by the event's patrons and founders alike. Every year, I get to see people who I feel like I love, but just because I've seen their YouTube videos, Hank tells me at this year's convention. I guess that's like the VidCon experience, but it's very cool. I feel it extra this time because I haven't been in a while, so there's just a bunch of people I've never met before who are my faves. While Karen still celebrates the nostalgia of VidCon's early days, she acknowledges that without the thriving creator community the event helped spearhead, her career trajectory might look a lot different. Boasting a portfolio of work that includes contributions to the Greens' various projects, she landed a visual design role at YouTube's company headquarters in San Francisco, as her first job out of college. Even when she moved on to a production role at HGTV, Karen continued to create her own videos and attend VidCon. She went full-time on her Karen Puzzles spin-off channel in 2022, where she has documented her journey to becoming a competitive speed puzzler. In a glossy profile published this year, the New York Times referred to her as one of the sport's most familiar figures. This year, she spoke on several panels at the convention. Every job that I've had over the years has been somehow connected back to YouTube, Karen tells me. I've never really had to apply for a job. I was pretty young and couldn't really get in on a lot of the business opportunities like John and Hank did early on, she continues. But I'm really thankful that they were also just in the right place at the right time when they made VidCon, which really helped drive online video forward. They were good people at heart doing it. Part 3, The Educators. I'm Hank Green, and I want to teach you chemistry. But please do not run away screaming. Hank, new crash course in Pizza Miss, 2014. A couple months have passed since we wrapped up our photo shoot at VidCon, and I'm now walking over the stunning Clark Fork River in Missoula, Montana, on the way to visit the offices of another company started by Hank and John. This isn't exactly the first location that pops into one's head when thinking about where an educational media company with over 80 employees and 25 million combined subscribers would set up camp. But the Complexly team likes it that way. It's a fun town, and it's nice to have a slower pace, CEO Julie Walsh-Smith tells me over coffee. Then be able to go visit the coasts and take meetings, and just kind of retreat back here when we need to. When we talk at the office in August, Julie is celebrating a decade of working at Complexly. She started as Hank's executive assistant in 2014 and worked her way up to chief operating officer. When Hank stepped down from the CEO role in 2023 after announcing his cancer diagnosis, Julie took over. Julie describes the news as earth-shattering, akin to the start of the pandemic. We weren't sure what was going to happen, not only with Hank's prognosis, but his relationship with work and his relationship with Complexly, she says. The latter relationship started in 2011, when YouTube named Hank and John recipients of its original channel initiative. The $100 million fund was spread among a group of noteworthy entertainers and media publishers, including the musical hitmaker Pharrell Williams and The Office's Rainn Wilson, all in an effort to introduce more premium content to YouTube. For the Vlogbrothers, the grant helped plant the seed for 2 new spin-off channels, Crash Course and SciShow. The pitch was simple. Our goal is to make Crash Course the most fun you ever had learning, John says in the channel's first video from December 2011. The following month, John launched a series focused on world history, and Hank took on biology. The brothers viewed Crash Course not as a replacement for traditional classroom settings, but as a companion booster pack of sorts. John was an established author at that point, yet he didn't have any formal teaching experience. Neither did Hank, though he had worked in a lab in Orlando after studying biochemistry as an undergrad. Still, what the brothers lacked in teaching degrees, they made up for in 3 big ways: funny, fast, and free. They introduced recurring bits to Crash Course, like when John would answer questions from his hyperactive high school self, yes, me from the past, and sneaking asides to producer Stan Muller. Paired with the quick-cutting style they'd honed through their trademark Vlogbrothers format, each video crammed a lot of information into a 10 to 15 minute runtime. By distributing Crash Course through YouTube, the Greens kept it free, achieving their mission of lowering barriers to learning by making their show available to all. When Julie walked in the Missoula office's doors in 2014, she remembers that there were about 15 people split between Crash Course and SciShow, with another small group working with John in Indianapolis. While the teams behind VidCon and DFTBA, the Greens' growing merchandise fulfillment company, didn't share the exact same office, they were also based in Missoula, a sisterhood of companies, according to Julie. Though she was officially employed by the company behind Crash Course, which would become known as Complexly in 2016, Julie would act as VidCon's press liaison some years and help run the project for Awesome and others. It was scrappy in the most lovable way. Everybody was doing a little bit of everything back then, she says, recalling how she was left to build her own desk during her first day on the job. The team could only remain scrappy for so long, however. They had high ambitions to launch new series and keep creating episodes of Crash Course at a premium level, bringing together editors, animators, educators, and fact-checkers to produce a consistent product. But the original grant from YouTube could only fund the company for so long. So in 2013, the Greens turned to their community for support, starting a monthly subscription-based crowdfunding service called Subbable. 2 years later, Patreon wound up acquiring Subbable, transferring Complexly's network of subscribers over to its membership platform. These days, Crash Course and SciShow share roughly 18,000 paying members combined, providing a hefty portion of Complexly's revenue. Additionally, the company began selling a limited edition Crash Course coin in 2021 that pledges to keep the shows free for all via viewer support. This year's sale was the biggest fundraiser we've ever had, Hank tells me. It makes sense in 2024 that you could start a pair of YouTube channels and build a business around them through membership subscriptions, AdSense revenue, and merchandise. But Julie remembers a time not so long ago where most of her energy was spent convincing family, friends, and even potential company partners that her job wasn't just showing up to work each day to make YouTube videos with a couple of guys on their laptops. We felt like we were the only ones, especially in the educational space, who were building something large in an anti-establishment, anti-traditional media way, she says. We were taking inspiration from different models. We're part creator come educational media business. Sometimes we feel like a nonprofit. It's a convoluted pie with many flavors swirled together, so Julie pulls out a marker and walks me through the Complexly org chart. The company has swelled to over 20 shows and 80 employees over the years, including departments for people ops, finance, creative, and business. Following the pandemic, only about 20 employees are still based in Missoula full-time. The rest either work in Indianapolis or remotely. Creative represents over 80% of the company, with 4 executive producers and a design lead managing smaller teams from there. The main Crash Course and SciShow episodes represent the most frequent uploads every week, but freelance subject matter experts such as astrophysicist Katie Mack also pop in for a limited series every once in a while. Along with overseeing all 4 departments, Julie plays an integral role in securing additional funding, which has included partnering with PBS and a nonprofit started by Bill Gates, as well as turning larger strategic initiatives into a reality. One such initiative is Study Hall, a new program between Complexly, Arizona State University, and YouTube that's intended to make higher education more accessible. Here's how it works. Learners can watch Study Hall videos for free on YouTube and decide if they want to pay $25 for a full, cohort-based online course through ASU. At the end of the course, students can pay $400 for college credit and transfer them to any of the hundreds of institutions that accept ASU credits, according to the ASU website. It's a fascinating look into Complexly's next phase as the company settles into its second decade. As I thank Julie for her time and proceed to tour the various studios with an enthusiastic SciShow host named Savannah Geary, I think about all the stuff, as Complexly likes to classify their output, being created out of this small 2-floor office in Missoula, and how that stuff has impacted billions of people around the world. Because that impact is represented by more than just 2 billion views on YouTube. An incorrect figure, anyway, according to Hank. For many years, YouTube has been incapable of counting views that happen inside of schools because of rules about how you can track young people, he tells me. So we've long passed 2 billion views on Crash Course. From his perspective, the best quantifiable evaluation of their stuff is through a survey they conduct every year with their power users, teachers. He points to Edpuzzle, a free online platform that lets educators turn videos into lesson-plannable quizzes and games. They learned about it through the annual survey. Every Crash Course video has hundreds or thousands of these question sets written by different teachers that other teachers can then use, Hank says. This has been happening for years, and I had no idea. John is the more anecdotal brother of the duo, pointing to a memory from 2016, at the height of the civil war in Syria. The experience that brought it home to me most viscerally was when I was in a refugee camp just south of the Syrian border in Jordan, he recalls. Somebody came up to me and said, "Are you the guy from Crash Course?" After saying yes, John remembers how the man explained that he'd been learning English and philosophy from watching the Greens' videos. And then we kind of struck up a conversation, John tells me. It made me realize the reach of Crash Course was so much more than what I'd thought. The inspiration for Complexly's name came from Hank and John's desire to explain complex topics and ideas in a way that made them more accessible. Hank takes pride in that responsibility across all of his work. Even the stand-up that I do, it wouldn't stand out enough and it wouldn't be me enough if I wasn't also, helping people understand something weird about their world, he tells me. Cancer was an amazing frame for that. Roughly a year since he announced he's in complete remission following chemotherapy, I watch Hank record several episodes of SciShow back-to-back, with a quick t-shirt swap in between. While he's taken a step back from his duties as CEO and only comes into the office a couple times per week, I notice his coworkers perk up and crack jokes in every room he walks into. The SciShow crew doesn't seem to take itself too seriously during these long sessions, too. An hour into recording, Hank and another team member removed their shoes, filming the rest of the episodes in their trademark awesome socks. Early on during her time at Complexly, Julie remembers asking Hank if there was something she could read to catch up on the YouTube space. Not only how to make videos, but also as a history of the personalities and waves of virality that preceded 2014. He and his COO at the time, Michael Gardner, both laughed out loud at me. Like, there is no book. We're writing the book right now. And I feel that now, she observes. Part 4. The Advocates. I have to confess that I, despite my ridiculous, over-the-top optimism about all of this stuff, never thought this was possible. John, An Incredible Update, 2023. The next stop on my Missoula adventure is the warehouse of DFTBA Records, the e-commerce merchandising company Hank co-founded in 2008, and named after the brothers' "Don't forget to be awesome" catchphrase. A quick Uber later, and I'm shaking hands with Dave Luce, the company's head of creator partnerships. Dave walks me around, showing me all of the different product orders DFTBA sources and fulfills, such as standard apparel pieces like t-shirts and hoodies, as well as specialized plushies and mugs for creators including Kurzgesagt, the Try Guys, and Hank and John. Over the last 5 or 6 years, we've gotten a lot bigger, especially during the pandemic, Dave tells me. DFTBA now has nearly 60 full-time employees, the majority of which work out of their Missoula offices. Dave mentions that number jumps close to 70 during the holiday season. The end of our tour brings us to a new auxiliary warehouse, which visibly features a copious amount of colorful socks. 40,000 socks take up a lot of space, Dave notes. He explains that they expanded into this section to match growing demand for Good Store, the spin-off arm of DFTBA that donates all of its sales to the Green's various charitable endeavors. While Good Store started with a monthly sock subscription, it's since expanded to ethically sourced coffee, tea, and soap, the latter produced by a local business here in Missoula. The warehouse is relatively quiet today, with a handful of younger employees donning headphones as they pack orders. This room's impact isn't lost on Dave, however. It's weird to think that socks help fund half of a maternal center of excellence, he says. Dave is referring to Hank and John's work to raise awareness around maternal mortality rates in Sierra Leone, a country in West Africa where roughly 1 in 17 women were dying during pregnancy or childbirth circa 2015. Over the past 5 years, the Vlogbrothers have rallied their community towards building a state-of-the-art hospital in Sierra Leone to help fight this crisis. The Maternal Center of Excellence, as the facility has become known, aims to provide advanced maternal and child health services while also serving as an educational hub to train more doctors and nurses. Through sock sales and direct donations, Nerdfighteria has fulfilled their commitment to raising over $25 million for the center. Additionally, the maternal mortality rate has decreased to 1 in 52 women in Sierra Leone. It's an astounding level of impact for any YouTube creator's community, especially for a channel that, on the surface, counts a little less than 4 million subscribers. But to better understand the full scope of the Greens' activism, you need to go all the way back to 2007, or even earlier in some people's telling. Fundraising is something that John and Hank have always made really central to their work, Elise tells me. They credit so much of that to their parents being activists and kind of raising them in that way. Mike, their father, was the director of Florida's Nature Conservancy, while their mother, Sydney, worked for a local nonprofit called the Healthy Community Initiative. When joining Hank and John on the Fault in Our Stars tour, Elise recalls the brothers passing around a donation box at every stop, where fans, keenly attuned to the Vlogbrothers' charitable campaign du jour through watching the YouTube channel, would happily chip in money on top of the cost of their entry tickets. I remember we crossed into Vancouver for the last stop of the tour. We had to deposit thousands of dollars or else we couldn't cross over into Canada, she says. It wasn't the first time the Greens became saddled with too many donations on hand. Somewhere between 2007 and 2010, John and Hank went on a nationwide tour to meet lots of their younger fans at schools. Ettore Rossetti, the head of marketing innovation at the nonprofit Save the Children, tells me. He says that when the brothers stopped by Fairfield County in Connecticut, where the nonprofit is located, They gave us a bag with thousands of dollars of cash and coins that were collected nationwide. Ettore and Save the Children have become regular fixtures in the Project for Awesome, an annual event run by Hank and John since 2007. Every year, hundreds of professional YouTube creators, organizations, and amateurs alike upload videos that make the case for why viewers should donate to their charity of choice. Hank and John then host a 48-hour live stream where they welcome on special guests, like Ettore, to complete silly tasks such as talking to parrots or, in John's case this year, shaving their facial hair. According to Ettore, the project raised roughly $10,000 or so in year one. It passed the $1 million mark for the first time in 2014. This year, it set a new record of $3.5 million. I think part of their success, both on their YouTube channel and all of their ventures, including their philanthropy, is that they are genuinely passionate and authentic and care about it, Ettore remarks. It's not a show. It's not an act. Ettore, along with most of those I talked with in the Vlogbrothers orbit, pointed out that the brothers' impact goes far beyond raising money and calling it a day. While the Foundation to Decrease World Suck, the 501c3 nonprofit the brothers formed behind the Project for Awesome, has doled out grants to hundreds of different organizations by now, its long-standing partnerships with Save the Children and Partners in Health that have achieved increasingly ambitious results over the last decade plus. Case in point, the Greens' commitment to the Maternal Center of Excellence didn't come out of a vacuum. They learned of the maternal mortality crisis in Sierra Leone when John read a profile on PIH co-founder Ophelia Dahl in 2017. John reached out, and 2 years later, he traveled to the country with his wife, Sarah, to gather an on-the-ground understanding of Sierra Leone's health system. The elephant in the room is that, following a decade-long civil war that began in 1991, the Ministry of Health in Sierra Leone didn't have the resources to build back its healthcare system alone, according to Vicky Reed, the executive director of PIH Sierra Leone. What happens then is you have a lot of different NGOs who come in to do one project or the other, and it makes it very difficult for the ministry to figure out who's doing what, she tells me. That's where clear lines of communication became vitally important. And while Reed stresses the importance of PIH's work itself in enacting change, the organization has over 20,000 staff worldwide, many of whom are on the ground every day. She describes Hank and John's vlog updates on the Center for Excellence progress as nothing short of phenomenal. The way I look at it is, they don't have to do this, and yet they are, Reed tells me. When we're here in Sierra Leone doing the work, we're so immersed in it. The education they're providing to those outside of the country to understand what we face and how they can enable us, that is the reason why we continue to be able to do the work. Others agree. When visiting the site of the Center for Excellence in recent years, John spoke with citizens and Doctors Without Borders researchers about the devastation that tuberculosis, the world's deadliest infectious disease, often abbreviated as TB, wreaks on Sierra Leone and other countries. The problem with TB is that you can cure it. Stein de Borgrave, a leading expert on infectious diseases at MSF, tells me. We can diagnose it if we have access to the tests and the drugs. It's curable. And yet today, 1.3 million people still die of TB every year. One reason, the pharmaceutical giant Johnson & Johnson had the exclusive right to produce and sell a TB-curing drug called bedaquiline, which made it unaffordable for a huge percentage of the world. John took issue with this. Everybody has to pick a focus, and you can't go deep on everything, he tells me. As far as tuberculosis itself goes, it's the world's deadliest infectious disease, and most of us don't hear about it because it almost exclusively affects people in impoverished communities. He spent the last several years consistently educating the Vlogbrothers audience on key stakeholders in the fight against TB. And when the time struck, Nerdfighteria was ready. A week before Johnson & Johnson was set to renew its patent in 2023, John uploaded a video to the Vlogbrothers YouTube channel that asked his viewers to call and tweet at the company with the hashtag #PatientsNotPatents. The viral pressure campaign took over Twitter and beyond. Johnson & Johnson agreed to sell a cheaper generic. It was an unprecedented result and a testament to the power of the Vlogbrothers platform. Riding the wave of public outcry, John mounted another pressure campaign, this time calling on a different pharmaceutical company, Danaher, to lower the prices of its TB diagnostics tests. A coalition of 150 countries, researchers, and organizations contributed years of preparation that generated a lot of evidence to support these campaigns, according to Stin. But the work never really ends. It's been a year since Danaher publicly agreed to lower the prices of their tests, yet MSF says the company has broken their promise to follow through. Still, Stin can't help but feel confident having John and Hank, and by extension the rest of Nerdfighteria, in their corner. John takes his time to absorb and to learn, and then uses leverage in a very smart way to make a change for this world, Stin says. It's really a long-term engagement that he makes for the community. That's exceptional. There's a lot of people with his leverage, but not the same level of passion. Gilberto Rodriguez, a lifelong nerdfighter and 28-year-old school psychologist in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, watches the Project for Awesome every year and donates to its various causes. I think all nerdfighters are inherently good people, and Hank and John just kind of magnify it, he tells me. One of the strongest connections that a community can form is when people feel like they're part of something bigger than themselves, which is a little bit lost, more or less, in modern days. Vicky, the PIH director, echoes a similar sentiment. Anything that affects somebody in one part of the world at some point is going to affect you in your little corner of the world, she says. So we need to start seeing ourselves as a global village, and we need to be able to support each other, whatever and however we need to. It's not hard to see why this group of experts and advocates have coalesced around the Greens and their mission to decrease world suck. When humanity protects the frail among us and works to ensure their survival, the human project as a whole gets stronger, John wrote in his most recent book, The Anthropocene Reviewed. When I spoke with John ahead of the film premiere in April, he made several self-deprecating jokes about his next book, A Scientific and Social History of Tuberculosis, that is set to release in 2025. Yeah, nonfiction. Probably not going to be a massive bestseller on the scale of The Fault in Our Stars or Turtles All the Way Down, he quipped dryly. Yet after all these years, even John sometimes underestimates the collective impact of Nerdfighteria. Somewhat incredible news. Pre-orders of Everything is Tuberculosis are outpacing any of my previous books, he posted in October. Epilogue. I have many jobs, and I like them all, but my best job is being Hank Green's brother. John, I love Hank. Also, I'm back. 2024. After a full day in Missoula, the sun is now setting on my time at the Western Montana Fair, and I head into the arena to watch a climactic evening rodeo. Once I'm seated, I can't help but look up. The scenic venue transforms into something even more awe-inspiring, as a purplish sky casts a sense of wonder among the stunning mountain backdrop. I began to understand why Hank, just like the fair's founders, never left Missoula after following his wife Catherine to grad school here many moons ago. I snap back to reality, however, when a small group of horseback riders gallop into the arena, proudly hoisting Make America Great Again flags. Later on, one cowboy is thrown from a bucking bull and suffers a catastrophic injury. While a team of medics brings out a stretcher, an MC uses the pause in action to emphasize rodeo participants' love for the sport, railing against NFL players with an argument that would fit right into a Twitter comment section. At least when our boys tear their ACLs, they do it for the love of the sport. They don't have millions of dollars to fall back on, the MC shouts, grabbing his knee and rolling around on the ground to cheers from the crowd. It is 2024, after all. Even in the mountains, the culture wars are inescapable. At the beginning of this story, I promised you, dear reader, a journey to better understand, if not outright celebrate, Hank and John Green's impact on the people, industries, and institutions around them. But the brothers' contributions to the creator world and beyond could have been highlighted last year, or the year before, or any time in the last decade, really. Why is this story worth telling now? Among the many late nights transcribing interviews and watching Vlogbrothers videos, a small bug appeared in the writing algorithm of yours truly. Stop me if you've heard, but a rather impossible to ignore election occurred this year. And headwinds be damned, the road to the White House ran directly through YouTube's trending pages. The harmless email I received from Hank in March, the one letting me know we'd have to reschedule our Missoula meetup due to a White House invitation from President Biden, began to feel, in retrospect, a little less unique. If it wasn't already obvious, Donald Trump's decision to consistently spread his stump speech via softball podcasts and live streams with fawning creators only further confirmed where the power lies in our modern information ecosystem. A narrative quickly emerged from this dynamic. Pundits labeled 2024 the first, quote, podcast election, or influencer election, depending on which nomenclature is your cup of tea. This shouldn't come as a surprise to most. Confidence in newspapers, television, and radio has plummeted for a while now, and trust in our institutions is hitting all-time lows across the board. Over half of Americans now get their news from social media. Research has shown that these consumers are less likely to get the fact right about, say, a global pandemic than the average traditional media viewer. As the internet becomes real life, a social media contract more omnipresent than ever before, the creator world's outsized impact across our news, politics, and social infrastructure is becoming impossible to ignore. Sure, Hank and John's groundbreaking, overwhelmingly positive work as stewards of Nerdfighteria and the grander creator community served as a worthwhile impetus to tell this story. But as 2024 progressed, I began to view the brothers' journey as less of the standard every creator should aspire to reach, and more of an outlier among a sea of noise. Eventually, however, my cynicism gave way to a kernel of hope. Big pivotal moments in the trajectory of our respective cultures lead us all to evaluate what we hope to achieve as we build a brighter future together. And the vision of a brighter future I subscribe to came into focus when reflecting on an offhand comment Hank made to me in Missoula. As we walked along the banks of the Clark Fork River, I explained to Hank that, similar to his early adult relationship with John, I found that my older brother and I don't spend as much time together compared to when we were kids, shooting hoops in the driveway after school every day. I half-jokingly suggested that maybe the key to growing closer again is to follow the Vlogbrothers model, uploading weekly videos and starting a YouTube channel together as a way to keep in touch. Hank had a curious response. "It is nice having a project together," he said in a matter-of-fact tone. "Like having parents. That's a project siblings manage together. I guess Catherine and I's biggest project is a child." The longer I talk to Hank, it becomes apparent that he views Vlogbrothers as the same simple project he started with John all those years ago. Yes, he's logged 2 decades of near-weekly uploads under his belt, a remarkable feat in of itself. And sure, that YouTube channel is the thread that's tied all of the Greens' business ventures together, powering tens of millions of book sales, launching their convention, supporting their educational media company, and spurring their wide-reaching nonprofit campaigns. But the real reason it's all worked for as long as it has is Hank and John's basic desire to rediscover their love for one another, and maintain it ever since. Which made me realize this wasn't just a story about 2 guys uploading videos to a YouTube channel. It was about something much larger. I think about everything Hank and John's love for each other has unlocked, seen through the people who have been drawn into the Vlogbrothers orbit. It's a community of nurses and researchers, nonprofit marketers, and activists. Throughout the process of their day-to-day lives, every member of this group fundamentally believes in making things suck less for others. If hurt people, then good people must do good for other people too. Or, as Ettore puts it, people like us do things like this. I think about my conversations with Nerdfighters, how nearly every person I interviewed started off by telling me, well, I admittedly don't keep up with everything Hank and John do, then proceeded to mention they've been watching since the Brotherhood 2.0 days, and that they're now keeping tabs on falling child mortality rates in Sierra Leone as the Maternal Center of Excellence continues to progress. I think about the coalition of up-and-coming creators who the Greens have undoubtedly inspired to pursue their career path for reasons beyond clicks and views. It's not just the aforementioned Karen Cavett. It's also Adam Chase, one of the co-creators and stars of a reality competition show on YouTube called Jetlag the Game. When John tweeted at us that he watches Jetlag, that was like the biggest possible endorsement that I had made something worthwhile, Adam tells me. I don't know that there's another person in the world whose stamp of validation would have carried as much weight as John's, other than maybe Hank. I think about a story Gilberto, the school psychologist from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, told me. When I was younger, I would struggle with showing affection to people, he said. It was just because, I don't know, I'm Hispanic. The men in Hispanic cultures don't tend to show feelings that much. But when I latched onto Hank and John's work and their videos and the way that they carried themselves, it forged a fire in me, Gilberto continued. To just care about people and to love life. To love people and to always be kind and always be understanding. I guess what I'm trying to say is thank you, Hank and John, for everything that you guys have provided, he concludes. It's meant a lot. The Greens actively shy away from using the word legacy, as the ever-entrepreneurial duo view their projects as a constant work in progress. Nevertheless, upon asking every nerdfighter I spoke with how they would feel if the brothers decided to hang up the cleats in the near future, I received the same response over and over, gratitude followed by joy. I would be over the moon happy for them, Gilberto says. I'm pretty sure that Hank would love to work until he dies, but those two deserve all the happiness, all the relaxation. They've earned the right to just kind of call it quits. They've always reinvented themselves, coming at it with good faith and being real community leaders, Karen, the speed puzzling creator, tells me. I'm so thankful that the people I found early on have continued to do really good things. I'd hope that they would continue to create something, Peyton Mitchell, the Green social media manager, says. And even if it wasn't the same, I think that Nerdfighteria would survive and continue because we're all friends with each other. I think I'd miss them, but I know that if they decide to retire, it's something they really, really want. Trudy, the fan from Norway, agrees. We'd still be around. Nerdfighteria isn't going anywhere. At the end of his life, the great picture book author and illustrator Maurice Sendak said on the NPR show Fresh Air, I cry a lot because I miss people. I cry a lot because they die, and I can't stop them. They leave me, and I love them more. He added, I'm finding out as I'm aging that I'm in love with the world. Sendak ended that interview with the last words he ever said in public, a repetition of sorts. Live your life, live your life, live your life. I can't take credit for this reference. I lifted it straight from the Anthropocene Reviewed. What I can say, though, is that this story, the story of Hank and John, told during what appears to be a tremendous inflection point in our means of communication with one another at that, renewed and re-energized my faith in the wonderful and weird creator-centric world we now find ourselves in. Because when I watch a Vlogbrothers video, or read one of Hank and John's books, or harken back to the high school days of cramming crash course videos before an exam, there's a feeling of comfort, and a belief that these creative tools at our disposal can be wielded positively when in the hands of the right people. The path forward is daunting, but this pursuit has shown me that my desire to live in a more empathetic culture, within a more well-informed and a more loving society, isn't as crazy or isolated as it may sometimes seem. And that finicky feeling called hope, that might be the strongest level of influence any creator worth a damn could ever reach.
So I hope you enjoyed my profile piece on Hank and John. A special shout out goes to the brothers, as well as all the people who talked to me for this story. Even though it's been over a year since we published it, I'm still quite grateful. Speaking of which, here at Powder Blue, we actually publish a quarterly print magazine. And last month, we released our first ever collector's edition. It's a 300-page coffee table book featuring 5 years of on-the-ground interviews, photography, and design. Some of the stories include profiles on Cleo Abram, Maya Higa, and yes, John and Hank. While we're all sold out of the magazine featuring John and Hank on the cover, the Creator Mag book comes packed with the same original artwork, fresh design, and yes, the story you just listened to. But here's the thing, purchasing a magazine is the best way to directly support our work. We're an independent media company, and all proceeds go towards building out our newsroom. Anyway, if you can't support us financially right now, no worries. One way you can help is by subscribing to the channel or sending this video to a friend. It goes a lot further than you think. All right, that's a wrap. New videos coming your way soon, and in the meantime, we'll see you offline.